Ready to embark on a journey of limitless curiosity? Join us on the Being Curious Show, where we curiously connect teachers and seekers in a safe space, exploring a vast array of topics that spark the flame of curiosity within you. We've created a community for thoughtful discussions where teachers share their wisdom and seekers explore the depths of their curiosity. It's a space where diverse perspectives come together, fostering connection and understanding. Our intention is simple: to ignite your curiosity and create a life that totally lights you up. Every conversation is a journey, a chance to explore, learn, and embrace the magic that life has to offer. Connect with the Being Curious Show on all major podcast platforms at the Edge Network, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Being Curious Show. Hey everybody, Kelly Wagner, publisher, Edge Magazine. New angle for the camera. What do you think? Hey, on today's Being Curious Show, we're going to explore the spaces where curiosity meets truth, where we're willing to ask the deeper questions, the ones that don't always have easy answers, but open powerful doors. Today's conversation invites us to radical reimagination of the democracy and what democracy could be. Not as something driven by power, noise, or reaction, but as a living, breathing practice rooted in mindfulness, awareness, and shared responsibility. Because what if the strength of democracy isn't measured by who wins, but how we show up for one another, how we listen, how we respond, how we stay present, even when it's uncomfortable. Our guest today is Jeremy David Engels, the author of Mindful Democracy, a declaration of independence to meet a fractured world, is here to guide us into a deeper exploration. Today's conversation is about consciousness. It's about healing, about what becomes possible when we choose presence over polarization and curiosity over certainty. So I invite you, as you listen today, to soften, to open, to be curious about your own world and your own role in this world that we're creating together. Because maybe, just maybe, the future of democracy begins right here with us. Welcome to the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. Hello, beautiful people.
Thanks for being here. So, you wrote a book. You've written 6 books. That is amazing. Like,
Thanks.
That's a labor of love, man. Like, that's like to do that. I work with enough publishers and publicists that right? It's a labor of love. And first off, I want to ask, let's talk about, I want to talk about the book and your curiosity, but tell us a little bit about yourself, because you do a lot and you bring a lot to the world, and you didn't just plop in as an author and a yogi and a professor and an author of 6 books. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up, I'm a Kansan. It's always funny at the beginning of the semester with my students, I'll play the where do you think I'm from game? And I've never once had a student guess Kansas, actually.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of them don't realize that's actually a state. But but yeah, I grew up in a town called Wichita, which is in the southeast part of Kansas. It's a medium-sized city.
I'm a Midwestern girl. I know about Wichita. I know about Kansas. I actually know where it is on the map.
Right on. Very cool. And growing up during the I was born right at the end of 1979, and so I grew up during the 80s, but I feel like I really became aware more of the world during the 90s. And I was simultaneously struck in the place that I grew up by the way that people come together to help each other almost unconsciously after really bad things happen. There was a terrible flood at one point when I was growing up, and I remember, neighbors and friends going to my aunt and uncle's house and, helping them to move things up higher and make sure the animals were, safe. I remember a really bad tornado that struck one of our suburbs as well, and just seeing the way that the community came together to care. that contrasted by just horrible acts of violence that I saw growing up as well. Wichita was kind of the home of a lot of anti-abortion protests, and some of those became incredibly violent, including, the shooting of an abortion provider in church. And that got me thinking about these two sides of the human experience, the way that we have the potential for love and compassion and connection, but at the same time, we have the potential for doing really horrific things. And so I wanted to explore, alternatives to the kinds of things that I was learning in school, the kinds of things I was learning in the media, just to see if there were ways that we could better tap into the parts, the good parts of ourselves, the better angels of our spirits. And that led me to begin studying meditation. And for a long time, I didn't, honestly, as a teenager, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing whatsoever. It was only later that I found some really great teachers who helped me quite a bit.
So how did you
And
start? Because I am
yeah,
meditation for me. I have monkey brain, and I mean, I
sure.
think I did yoga. It was the 11th time that I found my mat that I finally was like, I'm on my mat. I'm not just here in class
Yeah.
doing poses. I'm flipping on my mat. So how as a teenager do you start this practice?
I One summer, I had an amazing teacher in high school. We all have that teacher at some point in our lives who really, tells us that what we think and what we believe matters and that we can make a difference. Uh, and one summer, I went to every place of worship and practice in my hometown that I could visit. Pentecostal church, Catholic church, Zendo, and I started sitting and walking with some of the monks that were in my hometown, and my mom freaked out.
Oh, I bet she did.
Oh man, I was recently reminded of an experience that I'd forgotten or maybe blocked. I don't know, but I wrote a paper about nonviolence while I was in high school and looking at Gandhi and Thoreau and Martin Luther King and especially Zen Buddhist practices of mindfulness. And apparently my mom, delightful woman, she passed away a couple of years ago, and we got to be very close later in her life. But she apparently freaked out about this paper because she thought it was sacrilegious and went to my teacher and like knocked on his door and said, "What are you teaching him?" And
Right.
uh, but I remember having a conversation with my mom, kind of needling her a little bit, saying, "I'm going to shave my head and move to India and join a monastery." And later on, my mom told me, she's like, "You thought you were joking, but I don't think you were that far off from actually doing that." And she might have been right,
Right.
because there was something about meditation, about being able to touch this place of peace that is within all of us that, I found really alluring and enchanting. And so for a long time, that was kind of a separate part of my life from my academic work. So I got my PhD in rhetoric, which is the study of the power of words and language to build worlds and to tear them apart. It's such a great field of study, and rhetoric is really closely associated with democracy. You can't have democracy unless people know how language works and know how to use it and also know how to listen. And so for a long time, I was studying democracy and writing books about the history of democracy. And then on the side, I was meditating and began practicing yoga really seriously. And became a yoga teacher, went to India for a few months and studied there. And
Did you shave your head and do the thing that you told your okay, just checking.
I
Okay.
never did.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I still keep the
You have
bedhead
great hair,
going.
man. I
Yeah,
love
thank
your
you.
hair. Like it's awesome. It's got like its own have you like it almost needs like its own name. It's just like it has its
It's got
own
its own
identity.
ecosystem, kind
Yeah,
of.
it's
Yeah.
totally amazing. Okay, I'm
My
sorry. I
students
wanted to let you
sometimes
know.
Yeah, they call me the bedheaded professor yoga prof, which is sweet, when they're being nice. So, but it was, you know, we several of us here in this town that I live in, my wife included, we opened up a yoga studio 10 years ago, and called Yoga Lab, and it's been just delightful bringing people together. And I really love teaching. But it was 2018, I had the chance to go on a pilgrimage to India and to Nepal to walk in the footsteps of the Buddha. And so we got to see, where the Buddha was born and where he died and where he was enlightened. We got to sit under the Bodhi tree that he sat under and
Wow.
meditate for 2 days. We got to sit in the place where we think he gave the Four Noble Truths lecture for the first time. We got to climb this mountain called Vulture Peak and watch the sun set over the hills and chant the Heart Sutra with monks while that was happening. And it was amazing. And it was on that trip. Um, and honestly, I remember this specific moment. We were in northern India at a place called Nalanda University, which is the oldest university in the world. It was a Buddhist university, and it went extinct basically, maybe 12 or 1300 years ago. So it's just ruins now. But some of the stories from Nalanda that you can read in the ancient Buddhist sutras talk about how the monks would walk around and they would study and they would know when it was time to come in for dinner, because all of the crows that were in the trees would almost at once like take off and then fly somewhere else. And so I'm sitting there at dusk with friends and my wife and really wonderful teachers, and the crows get up and they take off, and it was like, I don't know, it was like I was there, but it was also 2000 years ago, and there was this connection between me and these other scholars and this, and I came home from that trip and I said, these two sides of my life are no longer going to be separate.
Right.
My spiritual practice, my yoga, my mindfulness, are going to come into the classroom. They're going to be what I study. And so it ended up, what, 8 years later or so, I have this new book about mindfulness and democracy. And It's been a ride. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, we could go
Hmm.
so many different places with that. So, my first question to you was, what is it's interesting now you're showing me like these pictures. It's like mindfulness is over here. The
Yeah.
current state of democracy is over here, but they're like lanes on the highway. And they're they're but what's interesting, what I'm being shown right now is the current state. It's over here, and mindfulness is here, and democracy is here, and there's a lane in the middle. Yet what I feel, my perception of your book and what you're is like, not only can they walk hand in hand, we need to bring them together, but then they can coexist together and meld together in this beautiful way. But it's going to take some reprogramming, and it's going to take some open discussion. And it's, how we're told in social situations, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, don't
Yeah.
talk about money, don't, but that's very American. That's the people in other societies and in other cultures, they come to a table and they share space and they share food and
Hmm.
they break bread and they
Yeah.
they 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 come curious, and it's not about who's talking the loudest or who's right or wrong, but come educate me. Let's play, let's educate each other, because what you in your background, like, I've never been to India. I've never Oh, I wanna sit with the crows, that sounds amazing. I bet you're like, "It's dinner time."
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So,
Yeah.
talk to me about this book, because this is your 6th book, and it has, is it 27 insights,
Yeah.
with it. So let's create an invitation for, Hmm. the timeliness of this beautiful book and where we are in the world. And this is not, and I want to let everybody that's watching this live or anyone that's watching this is not a political discussion. This is an open discussion about community and supporting each other and showing up for each other. And it's interesting, I'm seeing the analogy that I say a lot is I have peanut butter, you have jelly, let's go find the bread. And there's something really simple about it, but it's really
Yeah.
beautiful when you think about it. And so tell me more about what started you. And now we're not going to talk about, what's going on in the world, but we could if you want to. But
Yeah.
what got you so to a point where you're like, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to come up with, how did you come up with the 27 insights?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the really beautiful things, I think of meditation and mindfulness practice as offering us a number of gifts. And I think one of the greatest gifts of mindfulness practice is the ability to slow down, to look deeply, to see things clearly, and to realize that things could be other than they are.
Mm,
Um, a lot of times when situations are frustrating or painful, that's all we see, because pain and negativity have a way of drawing attention to themselves. But even in challenging, difficult situations, like the one that we're in collectively right now, there are always possibilities for transformation and change. We just have to learn how to see them. And I think one of the ways that we get to that place where we can see them is we gather together with other people and we talk, we learn, we're curious, we listen, we ask questions. And so I have become convinced that not only is the way that we define democracy today not the only way that we could define democracy, but that it also is a way that really like is soul sucking. It just kind of sucks the life out of us. This sense that politics is a war, winner take all. There's always a winner and a loser. And I think that's a lot of the reason that people don't want to talk about politics is because it becomes a competition, you know.
mm.
Um, so what would happen if we set that aside and we said, actually, democracy is a practice. It's something that we do together, and we do it not to win or to lose. We do it to care for ourselves, to care for each other, and to care for the life that we share. Um, because this miraculous miracle life that we have needs a lot of care. Um, there are there's pain in life. Some of it's inevitable, some of it's not. And so I wanted to write a book that would inspire people to look at the world differently, to move beyond that war, that battle, that competition, and instead to return to this place that I feel like is deeply human, this place of wanting to care, of wanting to love, of being compassionate. And so, um, there are a lot of fun things about this book that I really I loved writing this book. It was so fun. I mean, I
I
love
can see you
writing.
mapping it out, and I can
Yeah.
see you in the ideation and the creation
Mhm.
process.
It's so fun. And but this is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So that was 1776, 250 years ago. And I thought it would be fun. I think it is fun to rewrite and reimagine the Declaration of Independence as a declaration of interdependence.
Interdependence.
Yeah, so a declaration that inspires us to lean into what we share and to help us realize that we belong to each other. We belong with each other. And So I kept the same word count as the original declaration. I kept the same structure just because I thought that would be fun. There were 5 parts. But one thing I changed was the biggest part of the original declaration are these 27 grievances against the king. So there are 27 charges of all the ways that King George is a really bad guy and he's wronged us. And I thought, the last thing we need right now is more grievances, more resentment. I mean, just open up any social media app and there's plenty of that right
Right.
now. What if instead we had 27 insights into mindful democracy, into this practice of care? So the book then is structured along the lines of there's 27 chapters, one for each of the insights, and each of the chapters is really short. And it's meant to be, read, over the course of 5 or 10 minutes or so. And I hope that they all serve as, I don't know, opportunities for reflection, but also conversation, the opportunity to sit down with other people and talk about them and see what they think. Yeah.
Well, and you don't have to read it in order with it. Because,
No, you don't, actually.
which is really lovely, is that you can just open it up and
Yeah.
and it's so fluid. And I knew when you said that you have your doctorate, is it your doctorate, your PhD in
Yeah.
rhetoric?
Yeah.
I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, he's really smart.
Oh.
Well, but it's like, so I just started doing like a word of the day so I can, and it's really fascinating just playing
Mm,
with even little things like that to just try to increase your
yeah.
vocabulary and then lean in. But I just want to let you know I was reading it. I was like, he really
Oh,
knows his stuff.
well, thanks. Thanks. I think it's a book born from a lot of study, and also a
Right.
lot of experience too. And yeah.
Well, and the font that you use in all the titles seems like it's from the Declaration of Independence,
Yeah,
which
that was
that was
the
fun.
idea. It's fun, yeah. And I was so fortunate with this book to work with it's a press called Parallax Press, and it's a nonprofit independent press. But it was founded 40 years ago, actually. This year it's their anniversary. And it was founded by the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who was an amazing teacher, and he really helped to bring mindfulness and meditation to the West. He was a Vietnamese man and lived in France for a long time, and they could not have been better to work with at the press. I mean, it was just for an author, it was a dream come true.
Oh my God.
We would start our editorial meetings with like a 3-minute meditation. Who does that? It's wonderful. It's so great. I know. Yeah.
Right.
Everything is better if you start it with like a 1 or 3 minute meditation, I think.
Oh, I totally get. Well, so I was leading a co-leading a retreat in
Uh-huh.
Mount Shasta, California last summer.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
we were down at the headwaters gathering water. And I had this little, we saw the Tibetan prayer flags over
Yeah.
in one of the little buildings. And the
Yeah.
curious girl that I am, I'm like,
Hmm.
what's going on over there? So I walk over there and I because we're in here, I wasn't preparing to interject this into the conversation. There was a monk that was just extremely well known, very, very powerful, and he was doing one of the
Oh,
sand sculptures that
sure.
they do, and then at the end of the week, they do their like mini residency, and then it goes into the water.
Hmm.
He and then so he had that set up, and then there was just chairs around where people could just sit there and share space and meditate.
Oh,
And it was the energy was where I'm rambling on is the energy.
yeah.
The minute you walked into the room was just sacred. It was
Yeah. Beautiful.
powerful. It was beautiful. And
Hmm.
one of my the beautiful attendees walked up and the monk was invited her to be a part of the sand sculpture. He's like, you're
Wow.
ready and you can do this. So I mean that was
Mm,
fascinating. And then I
yeah.
just remember going over to him and he just the way he looked at me and the way his presence so it
Hmm.
was just amazing. And that actually made me intrigued to watch the Walk for Peace that
Yes.
they just had. That was just, is it Annika or Anoka, the prairie dog? Like, oh my gosh, I just got caught. I,
Amazing.
I can see you working with like-minded people to bring this book to life. Would
Yeah.
just be heaven on earth.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. And there I've been able to connect with just a lot of wonderful people who care deeply, and I think that we will be able to do some really good things in the future. And I love that you mentioned the Walk for Peace. I mean, how wonderful was that? Oh, just and they're doing another one right now in Sri Lanka. Uh,
Really.
yep, yeah, the same group of monks, and I think I think it was amazing to see the outpouring of interest in that, which to me symbolizes that people are desperately craving something different right now, something affirmative. They want to see people lead with love and compassion and patience. And um, so I found it so inspirational.
I felt the energy,
Yeah.
and then my curiosity is like, what kind of shoes are they wearing? I can't believe he's going barefoot. Like, right? There was like all, and then it was
In a blizzard.
in a blizzard, right?
Yeah.
And then, but what I also found fascinating was and I forget his name, but the that lead that led everybody,
Yeah.
monk, the sash he had on had all of these police officer badges,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that got heavy.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure too. I like physically and probably metaphysically, right?
Right?
Heavy. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it was fa and then the dog had to have surgery halfway through, so
Hmm.
they took, but it was um, every stop was getting red light therapy and
Hmm.
massages, and, like, and I think he only got lost once, like, he just left. He just kinda wandered off,
As dogs do.
as dogs do, but, like, but what was
Yeah,
amazing is they started every day with their meditation,
yeah.
and you could just see the dog fe like, the dog is a monk, by the way, just choosing to
Oh,
be
yeah.
a dog in this life, like, the way he holds energy was just, but he just sat there and he was like, "Mm." It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bodhisattva dog for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
And it's amazing how when a group of people who are committed and dedicated to the practice of peace,
yeah,
and being present, like how it changes the energy of a space. And it does. I think we've all been in spaces that are like what you said, they're sacred, right? And they're sacred because people have made them sacred through their practice. And I want more spaces like that in the world.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting, I was married in Maui on a cliff, and my
Wow.
it was awesome, by the way. My mother-in-law's like, "You can't
I
get
bet.
married. Like, you can't get married outside. Like, you can't get married there." And I looked at her and I was like, "I don't need a church, and we're doing
Hmm.
this." So we were married on a cliff by a shaman before I even knew what a shaman was, right?
Sure.
And we had a double rainbow, and there was the chanting and calls to aloha, and then it started to rain afterwards, and like
Wow.
it just
Hmm.
felt so amazing and sacred, and much more. I mean, churches are great, synagogues are great, everything's
Yeah.
great, but I got to do it on a cliff in Maui, and it just was
Wow.
amazing.
That's fantastic.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah,
Right? I've been to
absolutely.
great weddings, but I just can't, I giggle at the end of them, and I'm like, "Mine was better." But it sounded better, but mine just felt little, that's the little girl in me, right?
Mm,
One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is really, that because it is a practice. It is
yeah,
it's a cadence, it's a rhythm.
yeah.
What are we, your perception, what are we unconsciously practicing every day that is actually weakening democracy?
Mm. I think one
I was
of the
fascinated to ask that one to
yeah,
you.
it's a great question, and I think you phrased it so perfectly because I think a lot of another one of the gifts of mindfulness practice meditation is that it draws attention to what we are practicing because we're always practicing something. And a lot of
Something.
times it's like you said, unconscious, habitual, conditioned. And I think one of the things that we're unconsciously, habitually practicing that um, harms democracy because it harms ourselves and our connections with others is what I call enemyship in the book. And enemyship is the kind of unconscious urge to name enemies, to treat other people as enemies, but also to come together with other people in opposition to what you don't like or to what you hate. And that's a very primal way of bonding. But it's also a way of being in the world that turns life into a battle.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that we have to learn how to calm that battle and set our arms down and be together, even and especially when we disagree. Because sure, people are going to disagree on a lot of things. But when you see past those disagreements, you begin to notice all of the things that we deeply agree upon already. Um, and I think we have to get to that level to begin noticing the things that we share so deeply. But that practice of enemyship just completely blocks that from happening.
Talk to me about how to get people at a table together from different
Mm.
points of views. And it doesn't have to be politics. It could just be
Yeah,
different points of views because I could see you at this beautiful table, let's just say the UN of different opinions.
yeah,
How do you create space outside of start with a 1 minute to 3 minute meditation or
sure.
mindfulness, right?
Yeah,
How do you create and how do you encourage our listeners to make that bridge of that safe space of bringing people together because it's counterintuitive because again we're told don't talk about this and this.
right.
How do we in a really loving and safe space bring people together and create that discussion? And how, I know you've done it, how do you do it,
Yeah.
how do you recommend it, and how do you what invitation do you have for our audience to do that?
I think that one way to do it is to come together around things that you're mutually interested in and that you mutually care about, um, rather than trying to come together like around differences. And so, I love trees. I mean, a lot of people love trees, right? I think if I was, a Hogwarts character in like the Harry Potter books, my Patronus would have been a tree
Right.
rather than an animal. And part of it was growing up with asthma. I grew up with really severe asthma, and so I'm always very in tune with my breath. And trees are giant air purifiers. Uh, Trees are amazing. And I raise bonsai trees too, and that's one of my favorite hobbies. If you come together with people because you're a group of people who care about trees, you have something in common, something that you care about deeply, and it's something you can come back to even in moments where, you find that you disagree.
Right.
You know, I don't eat meat. Someone else might eat meat or be a hunter, but we both love trees and we love nature and we care deeply about that. So we have this shared commitment that we can come together to repeatedly. And I think there are opportunities for us to come together around so many different things that, fire our spirits and supercharge our souls. And we need to do more of that, I think. And then we can begin to work out in those moments, like how to talk about other things beyond the trees. You know, the forest is drying up. well, we should probably talk about why that's happening, and we might really disagree about some of the forces. But we can come back to this thing that we share. We can be curious, we can ask questions, realizing that, you know, fundamentally, even in spite of all the things that we disagree about, we are caring, loving human beings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I was going to ask you another question, but I'm going to save it. What is your top 3
Hmm.
insights of the book? Because I have my
Oh my
favorite.
gosh.
I
Ooh,
know.
what's your favorite?
Number 22, deliberation is the cornerstone of democracy. And while you're picking your next two, I'm going to read a little bit that I highlighted that I love about this. When
Okay.
practicing democracy, deliberation precedes action. Most of us never learned how to deliberate. That's okay. We can learn now. So you're like, okay, let's dive in.
Yeah.
So what people what do people committed to democracy actually do? And I love this. We build beloved communities. We care for each other. We think deeply. We practice mindful deliberation. We make wise decisions. And then we act skillfully to relieve the suffering of the world. There is something empowering about being asked to deliberate and to participate in making decisions that affect us, especially when we are constantly confronted with conversations that don't matter at all. I really love this. We are bombarded with information and conversations that don't matter at all. It's true that it's impossible to control the future. Fair. Nevertheless, a decision reached by deliberation and that has the collective buy in of the community is more likely to be wise than the decision of a tyrant acting by whim and fear. Fiat. Like, I love that. That just
Mm.
like, I was like, okay, close the book. Think about that. And you give a lot of those beautiful gifts. Like, you give a lot
Yeah.
of those beautiful gifts. Okay, that's why. And deliberation, as we shared in the pre-interview, was a
Yeah.
really powerful structure of when my kids went to a charter school. That was the middle school areas was all focused on deliberation and really being able to question and ask why, but do it in a thoughtful way and in a
Yeah.
mindful way rather than just like, I don't agree, but just like, okay, tell me more. I love when I'm in any situation to just go, I pause, I take a breath, and I'm like, tell me more. And that gets people to just absolutely open up. So,
I love
number
it.
22, deliberation is mine.
Okay. Yeah. Um, I think my favorites are probably 19 through 22,
Okay.
actually. And so the book is structured in 3 parts. The first part is really about developing our personal practice, a practice that opens us up to other people, to the world, to realizing our interconnectedness. The second part of the book is about building community. So how do we actually do that? And what makes a good community versus a community that might be toxic? How do we build beloved communities? And then the third part of the book is, all right, we've done our personal practice. We're on, a firm foundation there. We've built a strong, vibrant, inclusive community. Now what do we do? How do we act as a community to make the world better? And so insight 19 is there is no way to democracy. Democracy is the way. And
Mm,
this is actually some of my favorite writing that I've ever done was this one. This one and the one that you like, 22, I think. And Thich Nhat Hanh used to say there is no way to peace, peace is the way. So if you want to have a more peaceful world, you can't fight a war to get to that place because then the means undermine the ends. And this insight is really inviting people to embody the ethos of democracy in all of their interactions, treating others with respect and dignity, listening, pausing, asking questions, being curious, leading with love. Um, the next one is mindful citizens care. We do not acquiesce to injustice or bow to the status quo. Um, One really common misperception about meditation is that it means just accepting everything as it is and not doing anything about it. And that is a misperception. Meditation is about seeing things clearly and accepting that, yes, what is happening, but it doesn't mean that we have to like it.
Right.
And we can work to change it so that it doesn't happen again. And I think that's a really important insight for all of us who are on the spiritual path. Um, I don't think things are just going to magically right themselves. I think that things will be righted by us. Um, Democracy is about winning hearts, not wars.
Mm.
We're appealing to people's hearts. And then, like you said, deliberation is the cornerstone of democracy. This is where I really see the fruits of this practice. Whenever I invite people to have a deliberation or do a deliberation with my students, if we've built this strong foundation of mindful democracy, that deliberation goes so much better every time. Um, and then deliberation might be about making a decision, the best decision we can under the circumstances. But it's not just about that. The deliberation actually strengthens our bonds as human beings and members of the community. Yeah, so thank you for asking about that. Those are some of my favorites. And then I think my other favorite moments in the book are some of the poems that I wrote. There's several poems in the book too. Um, yeah.
I just saw the word listening over your head, and so many people want to be heard, but they don't want to listen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Listening's a practice.
It's
Um,
hard. It's like,
it
well,
is. Yeah.
I grew up in a family from the South Side of Chicago, and it was
Uh-huh.
everyone was in the room and they were yelling and screaming, and but no one
Yeah.
was listening. And
Yeah.
then I worked for my father for 17 years, who could sell ice to an Eskimo, and he
Okay.
was a mad scientist, engineer, right?
Mm.
So we would be in presentations, and we had clients like the Mayo Clinic and John Hopkins, and like we were a design shop. And he'd sit in
Cool.
front of these this round table of people, and it was the heads of the departments. And I would always ask, could we please have some of the workers that are actually dealing with our equipment? So we made
Yeah.
DME equipment, which is all the equipment in the hospitals that you don't think about. Okay. And he would be the expert in the room, and he would be
Mhm.
holding court. And I just sat back and I learned to watch the room, and
Mm.
I learned to listen.
Yeah.
And I would see when someone was taking notes or someone had an idea or someone totally disagreed with what he said. And we started to have a shorthand that he knew when I spoke up that I was observing the room and I was listening, and then I would add to it.
Mm.
And when I decided to leave the company, and that's a whole other show. But it was really interesting. My
Yeah.
father hired my brother as a sales rep, and they went into multiple sales calls or situations, and my father would get so frustrated because my brother just wanted to talk with him, and they wanted to talk, and they didn't have that listening and that quiet guide in the room that
Hmm.
watched it. And he'd get all frustrated. Well, your sister would listen, and your sister would do this and that. It was just really funny about
Yeah.
about that. So listening and having, like, what is it people say that it's an uncomfortable silence.
Yeah.
Silence does not have to be uncomfortable
No.
in any way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
right? It's so
Listening
fascinating.
is magic.
I'm there's a book right there.
Yeah. That'd be a good book title.
That'd be
Yeah.
a
Somebody
great
should
book
write
title.
that. I mean,
Someone should write that. Well, maybe that's
yeah.
book number 7. Okay, so as we're wrapping our beautiful
Yeah.
time together up, if someone feels disillusioned or disconnected from democracy, we start with listening.
Yeah.
We start with mindfulness, but where do they
Yeah.
begin to re-engage in that mindful way? How can we get people to say, in the current situation, wherever you are in the world, it's not just the US. Everywhere in the world, there's
Yeah.
some funk going on, right? How do we get people to put down their I don't want to say their weapons because that's just wrong, but put down their
Yeah.
judgment, put down their because a mind going amok could be a weapon, right? How
Oh,
do we
yeah.
get how do we get people to stop? I was going to say stop, drop, and roll. How do we how do we get people to
Oh.
stop, to take a deep breath, and to re-engage in a mindful way?
I think that anyone who was interested in the walk for peace, anyone who was excited about the Artemis mission that just happened, going around the moon and the splashdown, and I know that moved a lot of people. Um, I would invite people to ask themselves why. What is it about those
Mhm.
kinds of things, those moments, those experiences that were so meaningful? Um, and I would invite people to sit with that for, a little while. To me, those two experiences in particular were so meaningful because it was about people setting aside their differences and working together to achieve something amazing and miraculous. And I would invite everyone to realize that all of us are capable of doing that, of doing such things, if we set down the arms, like you said, and learn to listen a little bit more, to come together and talk and deliberate with other people a little bit more, and to reimagine the kind of world that we want to live in.
Mm.
Um, I think that one of the real challenges today is that people often don't ask us what kind of world do we want, and so we don't think about it. Because why? What difference does it make what kind of world I want when there are really powerful people determining what the world looks like? But it doesn't have to be that way. We can come together and work towards building something like a world that we want. We have that power. I think we just need to step back into it.
I love that. And there's the power of mindfulness. There's the power
Yeah,
of meditation.
absolutely.
What is it that like, oh, I'm gonna blow it, but it's the power frequency that's going off in the world right now, the
Oh,
soul.
sure. Right. I know what you're
You
talking about. Yeah, the
you
yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
like, right? Okay, anybody here, like, right. When people come together, whether it is prayer, whether it is meditation, whether you can actually feel it on the planet. And by the way, regarding the trees, they have wisdom.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're like they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they've got us. They're just it's just a little different. Okay, before I ask on how people find you, what is
Yeah.
a final invitation that you'd like to extend to our audience?
Oh. Oh. Um the very last chapter, the
I cut the
conclusion.
page out, by the way. I cut the
Did
page
you?
out. Yep, I
Oh,
followed the
wow.
rules. I cut the page out.
Did you sign it?
No, not yet. Hold on, I'm gonna do it on air.
Cool. Oh,
Go
very
softly, go
nice.
bravely, and go together. I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
keep going. I cut you off.
Yeah. I think the the end of the book has a meditation on hope, and then it ends with you know, I don't know that it's exactly a prayer. I don't know exactly what to call it, an invocation, an
Yeah.
invitation. And is it okay if I read
I
it?
was about to say, would you please read it for us?
Yeah, I would love to. Um, so this is how the book ends. My friends, may your life be a gentle unfolding into goodness and gladness and gratefulness. May the bumpy road lead you to greater freedom, connection, and peace. May your words be bridges, not battlegrounds. May your breath remind you of the miracle it is to be alive in this body, in this moment, among these people. May your hands be instruments of care, your eyes tuned to wonder, your presence a balm to the weary. May you find the courage to speak when silence feeds injustice, and the humility to listen when wisdom is not your own. May you remember always that you are not alone, because you are not alone, that this life is shared, that this work is shared, and that together we are already the beginning of the world we long for. Go softly, go bravely, go together. Mhm.
Our Mindful Democracy by my guest today, Jeremy David Engels. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a wonderful conversation.
This was fantastic. I hope we can do it
Yeah.
again soon.
Me too.
Take
Yeah.
take care.
All right.
Something new is unfolding at the Edge. The latest issue of Edge magazine is here, filled with voices that awaken your heart, expand your mind, and remind you that you're part of something much bigger. Explore conscious living, holistic wellness, energy healing, spirituality, and the art of awakening, all in one inspiring space. Awaken, discover, connect, and be curious. Print editions are now on the streets, and you can also read it online at edgemagazine.net. Welcome to the Edge. We have been waiting for you. You are right where you are supposed to be. Welcome home.